so Al Capone, and the liquor came across here and ended up in Chicago, and he was a Canadian club man, Canadian Club and Water.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, he was. As a matter of fact, the church, I think, has the cornerstone. I think his name is in it or something like that. But there's 2 churches that he built over there for that. One was for his wife and one was for the liquor.
Oh.
That's okay. Usually they don't use these doors, but apparently they're open now. So I think you can get out those. Are you looking for somewhere to go?
Yeah, it's just an emergency exit.
We are now outside in front of the Detroit River.
Those doors are probably open, I would imagine. Up. Okay. And it's quiet around here. I wonder why. Usually it's 12 o'clock, it's bustling. But I wonder why it's not bustling right now.
Got many stairs.
Okay, and we're going west. This is west. Ooh, what a gorgeous day. Oh my gosh.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, 32 miles. The river runs from Lake Erie, the mouth of Lake Erie, to Lake St. Clair, that is on the other side of what is one of the most beautiful islands you'll see. It's a Detroit city park called Belle Isle. It belongs to the city. It's operated by the state as a state park, and it's spectacular. It's National Register. They're addending it. It'll become a national landmark, hopefully. But this river has seen a lot. It's been dredged out. At one point, it was maybe about a mile across. It's a little bit more than that now. In the winter, it froze. You could walk it, kind of like the Ohio. But now, treacherous. Don't think you want to try that. I've only seen this river in my grown life frozen once, and that was that winter we had that really, really, really cold. Well, you were in Florida, or you probably weren't even in school. That was about 7 or 8 years ago.
The polar vortex?
Yes. We didn't get a lot of snow. We had a couple of days it was 30 below. It was bad. That was the only winter that I remember this river freezing. And I actually did a documentary that year too for Art TV, which is the German-French public radio station, public TV. It's called, the series was called American Rivers. And you can still look it up. They did 4 American rivers: Detroit, Miami, Chicago, LA, and told the story of their rivers from the industrial point of view, not the historical, if you want to say, point of view. Okay, this is our Port Authority. And we've just recently started having cruise ships, the Great Lakes, and they dock here.
Does this come up here? Is it permanently there, like a museum, or is it a...
No, you guys come back down at 6 o'clock, you can do a cruise. That's the Detroit Princess. It's a cruise, I don't know, party boat, I guess. And it cruises up and down the river.
Oh, fun.
Dinner, dancing, food, drinks. I don't know, you'd have to look that up. I have no idea. They do a dinner cruise, and our sunsets and our sunrises. The sunrise, I was watching the Today Show. Al Roker was here, and he was down where we're going. He was like right here. And they took a shot on the Today Show at 6 a.m. when the sun came up. And Robert said, "Oh my God, is that Detroit?" Yes, what did you think? See? It's not what you think. It's spectacular. And I don't know where we're positioned. We really do have beautiful sunsets. Not probably as open as the ones in Florida near the coast, but
Yeah, around that.
we do pretty good.
Gainesville is right in the middle, so it's swamp on either side.
Okay.
Or sunrise or sunset, really.
Where are you? What's
Gainesville, it's north central Florida, be near Jacksonville.
okay?
We do have a Haynes Prairie, which is now more of a lake where you get a good sunset on that.
Okay.
Nothing like this. This is gorgeous. Happy to be back in the big city.
32 miles of gorgeous and a lot of story.
Yeah.
Detroit was founded in 1701. Excuse me, it was established in 1701. You can't find something that was already here. 1701, so this city is technically 75 years older than our country. And there's a whole lot of, did you know the War of 1812 was housed here? The
Yes.
headquarters for the British?
Ah, Fort Detroit?
That was our side.
Okay, by that point.
No, the British headquarters in the War of 1812 was in Sandwich, which is where my family on the Canadian side. And that home where General Hull established his headquarters is still standing. It's a National Historic Site of Canada. It's about a half a block or so from the river. There are, on the Canadian side, there are 5 within 4 square miles of Sandwich, 5 National Historic Sites. How about that?
Wow.
A lot of history
So
in
was
this
it
corner of the world.
French original when it was first established, or is it British?
It was the French, 300 French families.
Is that French influence still felt very much in any way?
You passed all the street signs. Look at the street signs.
Oh,
They're all French.
that makes sense.
Most of them.
Riviera.
Most of them. They're French. 300 French families came here and landed with Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac, who, according to his descendants were here in 2020, right before we went into shutdown in March. By accident, I had befriended 2 of his great 12 great grandsons, and their father flew in from France, and I hosted them. We were all over Detroit, and too bad you weren't with us. We rode in a chauffeur-driven Cadillac Escalade, you know, get it? Escalade, General Motors. General Motors showed us the town. We had a driver and a SUV, and we ended up at the Heritage Center. Now, if you think you see cars here, the Heritage Center is out in Sterling Heights, which is one of our suburbs. And they have the first of everything that is rolled off the line. So, they have the first Corvette. They have the first Cadillac that was one stick and you drove it. Got pictures of me and the descendants standing in front of that Cadillac. They've got the first, everything. The Impala, the Chevrolet Malibu, all the firsts are in the Heritage Center. You walk in and your mouth drops open. You see all this. It's quite a place. It's very unassuming. It just says Heritage Center GM on the outside, and you don't really realize where you are till you get in. Yeah. All the old finned Cadillacs with the tire in the, oh my God, it's beautiful. Now, if you want to take some pictures there, you want to take some pictures of that.
I just wish we had more time here.
Oh, see, I think Barry has never been here either, and I think he's going, this is Detroit. Yes. Before you guys caught up with us, we were at Motown.
Jackson 5, all them.
My girlfriend is the general manager of Motown. She was in a meeting. I called her, so I'm going to call her back. And if you want to see Motown, it's not that far. The house that Barry built. And this is the monument. This is the only monument like it in the world. It exists in 2 pieces. Officially, it's called the International Underground Railroad Memorial Monument. And both halves tell a story. This is the gateway to freedom. And the gateway to freedom, what you see here depicted is what might be a family. They may not have really been a family. Maybe they met up on the road. And what you see here is we'll call him a father. And we see a couple ladies, probably one is grandmother carrying a baby, and we see the young man there, and they've got another guy they picked up behind. We'll have to go upstairs and see the rest of the story. And then in the centerpiece, the gentleman that's pointing, Barry, you've been to his, you've seen that's George DeBaptiste. And if you've ever seen a picture of him online, that's a very good likeness of him. Mr. DeBaptiste was born in Fredericksburg, Virginia, free. His family was free. His family actually Revolutionary War. His uncle was a captain in the Revolutionary Army in the Navy. So they were born, the family was born free. Mr. DeBaptiste was a barber by trade, and after he became of age, he started moving west to, stake his claim, and he ended up, the first spot he ended up in was Madison, Indiana. He built a home there that is part of a Network to Freedom Historic District. You'll have to tell me when you get down there, Barry, if it's still standing, because a good wind will knock it down. But he started his abolitionist ways in Madison. He was known to brag. Bounty hunters would come up. Madison, Indiana sits on the Ohio. It sits on the Ohio, and as you're standing on the banks, you're facing Kentucky. And he would brag. He'd go into the bars. He was free. And he would tell bounty hunters, I'm going to find them before you do. Place bets. He never lost anybody. So it got really good to him, and in 1846, the town of Madison threatened him and said, George, you're going to have to stop. Now, Indiana was free, but it was straight to the river, right? Straight to the Ohio. So they told him, either you're going to have to stop or you're going to be arrested. So he said, okay. He packed up his barber pole, and he had been sending people here. This was the stop he would send them to. So he packed up his barber pole and headed back up headed north using the old Sauk Trail, which is 94. Mm-hmm. 94. Interstate 94 was built using the old Sauk Trail as a footprint, and he ended up here because this is where he was sending people to visit his friend he had never met, and that was William Lambert. And Mr. Lambert is another one of our heroes. Mr. Lambert, his home is a Network to Freedom spot. Barry was there yesterday without a marker because they keep stealing it. Mr. DeBaptiste has a marker about a block and a half this way on one of the buildings where his home stood. And Barry, I have to tell you that all those homes stood until about 1965. It wasn't like it was a long time ago. But of course, we just decided to knock them down because why do we want to save it, right? So Mr. DeBaptiste is one of the few people, I think, in the country that actually has a spot. His home site is marked in two places, and they're both, one is a Network to Freedom site and the other one, well, they're both a Network to Freedom site. But as Mr. DeBaptiste points, you see his finger? Okay, when this monument was placed, Ed Dwight, who is the sculptor of record, I don't know if you know about Mr. Dwight, but Mr. Dwight was the first candidate to the NASA program who was African American. So he's kind of historic in itself. But he decided that he wanted to, it's obvious, this is what he should have been doing, okay? Instead of flying around, he wanted to do something on Earth. So when they place this monument, the monument screws in. Each of those characters, they screw in. They're all bronze, but they screw into this base here. So when they decided where they were going to place the monument, and the reason it's here, Barry, this was a dock. It was a ferry boat landing. So you're standing at a place of resistance. if you were to go, you'd have to go down a bit, but this was a ferry boat landing. So this actually should be nominated, and of course Diane and I for 20 years have been arguing over this. You know why? The symbols. Kim, they're not, I said, I understand. I said, but when you tell our story, you have to also tell the myth that surrounds it. And I just couldn't win her over. Maybe I can win you over. I'm just telling you. Because Mr. Dwight said he would take those off, but why? This is how you explain how stories get changed. You add the myth, because that goes back to the quilt thing, which is a myth. Please understand that. It is a myth. And if you need me to explain why somebody wouldn't know 100 miles away why somebody's quilt was hanging out, okay. But this needs to be nominated. And I've said I'd do it, but we go back and forth. And then I have to battle over the city because the city doesn't want to sign off on it. Now tell me why. Because they're crazy. Okay, this is Detroit, welcome to us. However, UNESCO wants to tag it. And I've had these conversations, that's come out of the coalition. They want this to become a part of the itineraries of memory program. And it would get a UNESCO plaque on it. If the city won't plaque it, you know, so that's up in the air. This is another argument going on. And the reason why this needs to be marked, I'll go back to his point. His finger point, when this monument was placed, Mr. Dwight got coordinates from NASA. So as I said, there is a monument. If you turn around, you can't really see it from here, but I'll tell you where it is. You see that's Caesar's, Windsor. And you see the tall Caesar's Tower? Okay. And then if you go to the right, there's a little short, kind of reddish with, looks like terraces. Then there's an empty space, and then there's another blonde building on the other side. You see that right in between? Okay, that's where the Tower of Freedom is. Now, the difference between that and this is if you were to go to the other side, and he can't go, but you guys can to the other, if you have your passports. Oh, see, you should have had your passport. You didn't know you were going to be looking at Canada? Okay. All right, because the story of the Underground Railroad ends there. It doesn't, our side ends here, but the story continues. But as Mr. DeBaptiste points, the tip of his finger is pointing exactly at that monument. He had NASA coordinates. So when you say that Mr. DeBaptiste is pointing to freedom, he is pointing freedom. That monument that sits over there is called the Tower of Freedom. And I'll take you upstairs to explain the other side. But this is Mr. Dwight's favorite piece. And he's got pieces all over the country. And Ed and I are friends. Ed's 90 now. He's about this tall and a firebrand. And he and I have stood down here in the pouring rain with an umbrella because he wanted to come and see it, and standing like this. And I'm like, Ed, come on, you know, can we go get a drink somewhere? But, and there's pictures, I'm not lying, I got pictures. But the monument tells the story of Michigan's role. These are the routes that led to Detroit. My ancestor took route number 4, which was the Old Sauk Trail. These are some of the participants, operatives. Many of them belong to Second Baptist Church, which Barry was at yesterday. But this tells the story of a family. Like I said, maybe they're not all actually related, met on the road, and they were told to find Mr. DeBaptiste. So he took them to the river and pointed to freedom. And at that time, they just needed to get, can you imagine 500, 600, 700, 800 miles, and you finally can see it from here? Let me take you upstairs and explain the rest of the monument to you. This monument was paid for by the Fords. Benson Ford wrote a check for $1.5 million. It has an endowment. It's one of the few monuments in the world that has an endowment. It has a $100,000 endowment for its upkeep, and as you can see, we didn't listen, because we don't. Welcome to Detroit. And this is why I said, Barry, we couldn't park. Okay. Okay. So let me explain the monument. So you got a family, and as I said, I got this from Mr. Dwight, so I'll tell you. See the young lady there? And the young man, and he's talking to her, and he's pointing, and he's saying, hey, come on, let's go. You know, we're going this way, and he's standing this way, right? And she's standing there, see how wistful look on her face? Mm-hmm. And she's looking this way. Okay, well, on the other side, at the Tower of Freedom, you're not going to see everybody. You'll see her, the two ladies in the front, and the father in the center. And that's all that you're going to see on the monument over there. Do you know why? Or would you figure why?
I didn't make it over.
There you go. So this young man didn't make it, and the old man didn't make it, but the young lady did. But here's the story. She was maybe about 14 years old, and she's thinking, you know, is this the right thing? Because that's the look on her face. Am I doing the right thing? Because she knows once she goes across that river, it's done. She'll never see this side again. And when you see her on the other side, you know where she's standing and what she's doing? She's still looking this way. She's that pose, she's standing and she's looking back. She's on the back of the monument. She's not facing freedom. Everyone else is facing this way into Canada. She is on the back of the monument looking this way, just like she is now. And that's because she doesn't know if she made the right decision, but she did it anyway. It's very poignant, and he did that intentionally. Because everybody, when they decided to do this, they didn't know whether or not they really should complete their journey. It's quite a spectacular piece. It was dedicated for our 300th anniversary, Detroit's 300th. It was part of the Detroit 300 celebration. The light of freedom is on the top. Those are slave tags.
Oh.
I have a slave tag at home. I should have brought it. I don't know, have you guys ever seen one?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you?
On this project in Ohio.
You did?
Had some,
Yeah, I've got one at home myself. And the faces, those are dedicated to those that we have no names for. They're the nameless. There are 100,000 people that escaped using the Underground Railroad in this country. And I tell people, and they say, oh, wow, that's a lot. 5 million that were enslaved? No, that's not really good odds. So that's dedicated to the 100,000 that have no name, or some that didn't have a name. I'm very fortunate the fact that I can repeat my story. And when I do talks in schools, I tell them that I speak for those that can't, because our stories aren't told. But this monument is spectacular. You guys, if you're not going to go across, you'll have to see it, the other side. It's it doesn't sit on a base like this one. It sits actually in a square. Over there's a square. Caesar's is the steward of it. They take care of it. And it sits on it has a small base that's concrete, but it's hard to explain. It sits back away from the river, and then there's a slab of concrete that runs kind of to the river, what is called Riverside Drive, up to Riverside Drive, so about a block. And the way the concrete is made, when you stand on the side, you don't realize it until you walk around it, but the concrete has waves to signify the river that they crossed. You have to see it. This is a one of a kind. There is no other monument in the world that exists in two countries, because it's considered one monument in halves. Tower of Freedom, the arrival and gateway as you depart. So I've had people stop me from Australia and all kinds of places asking about this monument in the city, as you see. We don't think it's that special. Look, we got stuff thrown all around it. They got to horse it off because people do crazy things. I came down one night because sometimes I'll come down to the river, and our scalpers had almost succeeded getting one of those screwed-in figures out. I had to call a cop and said, you need to come over here. Somebody needs to watch this, because it was literally leaning where they had almost, remember I said they're screwed in? They had just about screwed it out. The original project, these light up at night, but the original project where Mr. DeBaptiste points, his finger was supposed to be a laser project. And so what was supposed to happen is his point would point and would meet the monument on the other side, and it was supposed to be a laser show. That was originally, but then of course they got cheap. That at the time might have cost them a couple $100,000. And I asked Peter Berry, who's the harbor master in Windsor, I said, so what happened? And Peter said they argued over who was going to pay for it. I said, what do you mean? They said, well, the gas company on the American side and the gas company on the Canadian side, they didn't know who was going to foot the bill. I said they could have split it and it would have happened. Now, Mr. Dwight has said that he would be willing to come and complete the project. And that's part of the Detroit River project. Part of my vision is to get that finished. Can you imagine? It's a story. But the powers that be here don't necessarily think ahead, and here we are. Here we are. This is Hart Plaza, and if you walk to the end of Hart Plaza, this is the city, quote unquote. This is not the city center, because we do have a city center, but if you walk a block up, that little stumpy building on the left, that is Fort Pontchartrain. There's a plaque. This is where Cadillac landed, was here. And there's a statue of him around here somewhere. I think it's over there. I got a picture. March 2020, the 5th of March, the Cadillac descendants came in from France. I had met the two of the youngest great-grandsons in a shop. I used to work at a tourist shop part-time, and they wandered in on a Friday night asking about Cadillac stuff, and I looked at them and I said, well, what are you? Cadillac? Why are you looking for Cadillac memorabilia? I said, well, there's a General Motors. No, that's not what we want. Broken English. And I said, exactly. Can you tell me what your name is? Cadillac's descendants. They had wandered in. So they, that was November, and in March they wandered. They got their father. He lives in Lyon, and he flew in from Lyon, and for a week, that's what I was taught. We spent a Sunday afternoon seeing Detroit the Cadillac way, and they got to go to the Heritage Center. So I got pictures. We're standing at the original Cadillac. So they are the one that's told me. You know, he gave himself that name. He really wasn't a cat. He made himself important. He was just a guy the king was going to pay to come here. And I said, that's funny coming from his descendants. Well, it is the truth. So, okay. We spent all day. It was front page news. They ended up here. The mayor never thought that it was important to come. I love my city.
Yeah. Do you know anything that happened? Why? Is it just general disrepair, or?
Yeah, because the city doesn't like to. This is a black thing. I'm sorry, Barry. Excuse me.
Oh, yeah.
This is a black thing. If this wasn't tied to our story, trust me, it'd be spick and span down here.
Yes, ma'am.
I just told you there was a $100,000 endowment that was they had on this. That thing is supposed to be polished every six months. It's supposed to be polished. It's been polished since 2001.
3 times.
And twice because of.
Yes, ma'am. Wow.
Okay? I'm just speaking truth to power. Okay? And I'm allergic to them, and I have no perfume on because that's intentional, so they just like to chase you.
They do.
They
They don't care about nothing.
They are wicked. Yes, they were going to move it. Now think about that. I just told you guys why it's sitting there, right? And I told you it has coordinates, right? So move it an inch. The aesthetic is gone, right? No! It's taken me finally, because they're writing the new strategic plan for the city, and I finally got planning and development to understand you cannot move that monument. Well, it'd be prettier. No, it's not there to be pretty. It's there to tell a story, good or bad. And yes, that's why it's in disrepair, because we don't care. I do. There's a lot of people that do. But our current city administration is not historically inclined. In the middle of a 323-year-old city, not historically inclined. So you young people are going to have to come behind us and fight that fight.
Yeah.
Slavery existed in this city. The French brought us with them, and we were already here. Some of us were already here. But the French came.
Oh, the other one.
You see the plaque here? These are the 300 French families that are on that plaque there that came to Detroit originally. I think it's the same on both sides. See that round circular building there?
Yep.
Okay. This is our convention center around this corner here. It used to be called Cobo. It's no longer called Cobo. It's now Huntington Place, as in the bank. However, the round circular building there is still Cobo Hall.
Wow.
And why? Because in 1963, June the 23rd to be exact, there was what was called the March on Woodward. Barry, have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Okay. They estimate about 200,000 people marched down Woodward Avenue. Woodward Avenue is the street that goes out from here, and it divides Detroit from east to west. And it runs all the way out to 8 Mile, which is our border. And on the 23rd of June, 1963, the March on Woodward happened. It was a march for rights. It was a Sunday. It was a beautiful day like this. And it was led by a man that was about 3 years short of the last day on earth. And he marched in front of all those lovely people that had just come from church or the synagogue. And he came to Cobo Hall. And there's pictures of him. And he said, for the first time in front of an American audience, "I have a dream." Berry Gordy recorded it. It was the first recording of a speech like that, a public speech. And if the Library of Congress just recognized the recording, it is the recording. I think the recording for Washington is not recognized, but Berry Gordy's recording is recognized in the Library of Congress. But there were 40,000 people that stood out here in the plaza. They couldn't squeeze in because I think it holds about 4,000 or 5,000 people in the arena. And they heard him give his "I Have a Dream" speech for the first time. Was in Detroit. So if we walk up here, his monument, they've got a monument, they just placed it. It's like over here somewhere, of a king, and it's supposed to replicate some of the pictures of him standing in Cobo. But this is a pretty significant square. You've got the monument, you've got Cadillac's Landing, the "I Have a Dream" speech, and on that corner over there you've got Fort Pontchartrain, which is our original fort, over across the street. So this is a pretty historic piece of property in Detroit.
Is there anything akin to the Central Arch or the Circle?
Okay, this is Dodge Fountain. Dodge Memorial Fountain. That was for one of the Dodge brothers, one of the founders of the auto industry. Matilda Dodge, his widow, left money, and that is to honor him. Okay. The circle, that's the labor monument.
Let's get that one.
And it's spectacular. We have to walk to the street. It tells the story of the labor movement in granite. So there's granite pieces that go around it, and then the circle is you know, solidarity. The home of the UAW is down. This is Jefferson Avenue. It's about a quarter of a mile down there, and that's where you're going to find all the happenings. Everybody that isn't around here is down there because that's where they're doing their negotiation. Is down to Solidarity.
Wow.
Solidarity is on the National Register. It's a beautiful building, and it's gated off. And I'm sure there's a whole bunch of CNN and you know it, and they're all probably down there. Yes. Detroit is a really special place.
There's a lot happening.
Oh, sure.
So that's why the NAACP has the flags up over there for that monument.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why they were allowed to leave those flags up, but yeah. Because their offices aren't even down here, but I think they went up when they recognized the monument. I think those flags went up, but they actually should have the Detroit City flag up there too, but that's neither here nor there. That's our city hall right here across the street.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
And the Jolly Green Giant sits there, the spirit of Detroit.
Really?
Yes. Oh no.
I didn't know that one.
It's called the Spirit of Detroit. He's holding in his hand a son and 3 women. He's holding the city in his hand. And Father Richard, who is one of the founders of Detroit, he's out there on a pedestal out there. He's buried in St. Anne's. St. Anne's is the second oldest Catholic congregation in the country.
Wow.
And it's in southwest Detroit, right around the fort, because that's where the French were Catholic. It's its 3rd church now, but it was named by the Pope, Basilica, 2 years ago. And Father Richard, who was one of the founders, he was the first pastor for St. Anne's, and
Yes, I put it back in.
Oh, you put it back in.
Yeah.
he is a saint. He's a saint, and his crypt is in St. Anne's. You can see him because it's open, it's glass, so you can see his coffin that he was buried in, and we're talking about 1750s. Yeah, and St. Anne itself is on the National Register. It's spectacular church, fleur-de-lis and 2 chapels and just awe. Detroit is a home of beautiful buildings.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
With history, and all of them have history. So, what do you want to ask me?